So this is how to find, read, and cite scientific research. I know it can be hard, especially when you're starting out, to read all the scientific mumbo jumbo and the terms that they use. It can be confusing, especially figuring out the order and stuff of articles or how to find one, and especially citing them. If you cite them wrong, you can get so many marks off. You're going to be accused of plagiarism. So this is just here to help. This is going to be just a 101 of it. And if you'd like us to go in depth for any part, uh, just email the academic services department, give us feedback in any way you can. You can give feedback on Basecamp as well. Okay, so let's start with the basics of reading a research article. Firstly, identify the audience. So is the article written for scholars, maybe from a peer-reviewed journal, or is it more general source meant for the public, like a blog or something? Scholarly articles tend to be shorter and more technical, and they may assume some background knowledge. So you might have to Google some things if you don't have that background knowledge. If you are not the intended audience, don't worry. It might be harder to read, but with an open mindset and persistence, you will get there, and we're here to help you. So also think about why, uh, if this assignment was, if reading an article was an assignment assigned to you, try to think about why your professor assigned this article. Is it to spark class discussion or to show a particular topic, to build your research skills, to build on your knowledge of the class content? So understanding context helps you read the article with purpose. I have had a lot of assignments where I have to summarize an article into a presentation, and with that, it's easiest to break down the information into smaller parts so it's easier to digest and also to translate it basically into layman's terms, which I will get into in a bit. So before diving into the whole article, skim it first. Start with the abstract, introduction, and conclusion or discussion. These sections are usually state the main argument and conclusions. They give you a roadmap so that when you go into the dense parts, it's like the methods or the results, you already know where you're headed. Next, you take a look at how the article is organized. Oops. Look at how the article is organized. The introduction often includes previous knowledge, any overall statements or things to help, any background knowledge you need to know about what the article is talking about. The section headings will tell you how the information is structured, and knowing how the paper flows will make it easier to follow the arguments and locate key points. Not every section will be equally relevant based on our article's purpose and why you're reading it. Decide what parts to read in detail and what parts you could skim. Focus your energy where it matters most. For example, a lot of articles have calculation sections where it's just all the math and everything they did is in there. Articles are supposed to be dense enough for other researchers to repeat the experiment and try to get the same results. So they have to include all the math, but if your assignment is to just summarize an article or if you're looking for facts to back up the point in an essay, you do not need to read that math. It is just going to make your head hurt. When you are leading a or participating in a reading discussion in a class, have a plan. So choose key points and support them with examples. Let's say you're discussing time management strategies in an article. Zone in on one strategy and give an example and explain how it supports the article's overall point. This keeps the discussion focused and deepens everyone's understanding. Tailoring your approach by highlighting what's essential is a sign of strong comprehension. For good research, you need good sources, so go beyond what your school library provides. Your school library is the best place to start, but those websites are usually hard to navigate. So use online databases. Since we are the Medica Zone, medical field, I'm going to list a lot of science databases here. These slides will also be available later. But Science Direct for science and medicine things, PubMed mostly for biomedical work, more technical lab work, HAL, Cornell, University Library, most university libraries you can use, or PLOS and DOAJ for open access journals. Some of these websites and ones that are not listed here, you can only access through having an account, but usually your school will have an account. Even if you're in high school, you can use your school credentials to log in. Okay. NASA, STI, ideas, and open access libraries are for more niche fields where you can search up a specific topic, Google Scholar is always helps and Google Books as well. I tend to stay away from books simply because it is a lot harder to find a specific point when the text is wider, but books are an excellent source as long as they're nonfiction. So these platforms will give you access to high quality peer-reviewed work and across many disciplines. So articles can come in many forms. The best resources are peer-reviewed primary articles and secondary articles. Primary articles are talking about the research they did, and secondary articles usually talk about somebody else's research and multiple people's research condensed into one to prove a point. They're usually stacks of metadata. Okay, and when you read a scientific article, check the publishing date. Newer articles are more likely to reflect current thinking. I remember I had to do a project. The only articles I could find were from 1990. One of the articles my prof wrote himself. Like that was a little embarrassing. And obviously the work will be outdated if you get older articles. It's a little harder to find newer articles on things that are already very well studied and well established, like what I was looking for in my class. But you can ask your teachers and stuff for resources. Okay, to understand the structure, which is usually an abstract, introduction, methods, research, discussion. Write down the unfamiliar words, look them up. If you don't understand vocabulary, you will not understand the article. So a good reading order to follow is you read the abstract, it gives you a summary on everything, read the introduction to get context, and then read the discussion to get interpretation of the results. So the introduction will tell you what they're trying to find, and the discussion will tell you what they have found. Then you can read the results to know like the data and why they came to these conclusions in the discussion. And if you need to read the methods is one of the most difficult sections to understand, and in my experience, one of the most difficult sections to write about because most journals have a specific word count for the methods section. It has to be very, very condensed, which makes it harder to understand. The methods are easy to understand if you look up words, and all the words in there can be overwhelming, so I tend to skim over any units and anything in brackets until my second time reading them. That helps decondense the material a little bit. Okay, so starting with the abstract, it's a brief summary and it's usually no more than 6 to 7 sentences, around 250 words. It gives the article's purpose, methods, results, and conclusion. Think of it like a movie trailer. It helps you decide if the full article is worth reading for your needs. The methods section is where the researcher explains how the experiment was conducted, and it details the steps, the variables used, and the design. This section can be complex, but it is essential if you want to replicate the study or assess how valid it is. So next, we will look at the results, which is a very important section. The results section provides you with the data, and it's usually tables and graphs or figures of any kind, pictures of cells and things like that, without the interpretation. So I would look at the picture first, try to understand it yourself, and then look at the results section. The results section will reference the figures because they're numbered. I would read the figure captions, which is the little blot of words underneath figure. I would read that last after you're done the whole results section. It's much easier to understand figures once you read the results section and then you read the figure caption. And try to understand what the image is saying, even if it's really confusing graph. As long as you need that information. If you do not need the information and you just need to know what they found out, you don't need to go that in depth with the results. Focus on what was found and not what it means first. Now in the discussion, try to visualize the findings and note any patterns. This is where the author interprets the data and explains why the findings matter. Watch out, sometimes that includes bias or assumptions, which they will put in the disclaimer bottom. Think critically. Do the results support the hypothesis? How? Why? And always connect it back to the core research question, which will be in the introduction. Sometimes they even have a separate hypothesis and objectives section. The end of the discussion will also have the researchers saying key takeaways, any confounding variables or bias that could be in there, and they will say what can be further researched. Future research is very important as it also helps to explain why this research is important. For example, if there's an article that found out a new way that cancer cells grow, future research opportunities would be how do we get medicine that stops this growth and helps treat the cancer. So key takeaways from research articles from all the sections, find out what the primary question is, what were the main results, were there any limitations, and this helps you think critically and prepare for future research or discussions. And make sure you're doing all of this in the context of why you're reading the article. If you're reading it for an essay, if you're reading it for your own research, if you're reading it to make a presentation or reading it for a class assignment, or you're reading it to just try to know how to read research articles, or you're just curious about the topic. Okay. So here's a list of do's and don'ts. These will also be on the base camp. But reading scientific articles is a skill. So don't bounce around, stick to the structure. Skim it first, look up tough words, and read in logical order. The reference section is amazing. It can lead you to many more sources on that topic that can help you understand things, especially if you don't understand the background knowledge in the introduction section. Go to the references that they cited in the intro section, and that'll give you more knowledge on the background, which will help you understand research. Reflect on what the research means, why it matters, and what questions are raised. So these are all of our resources, and you can go to any of these to get more in details of what we talked about today. You can also email academic at the Medica Zone if you have any questions, any feedback, and any events you want to see in the future. So if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat or turn on your mic. Otherwise, have a great day.